It's another Q&A edition of Optimal Health Daily, episode 635, and I'm Dr. Neil, your host of the show. Welcome back to another Friday show where I play your questions and simply answer them. On all the other days, I read health and fitness blogs to you, kind of like an ongoing audiobook, with permission from the authors, of course. Now, I want this to be a place where you can expect to hear the truth, meaning not just my personal opinion about some of these things, but what do the actual data say about your questions? What are researchers discovering? That's really the only way we can start getting to the truth of some of these health concepts. Now, I'll let you know how you can send in your own question at the end of the show, but I need to get to my daily holiday trivia right now. So here's today's trivia question. This U.S. president was the first to display a Christmas tree in the White House. I'll give you a hint. This was back in 1889. Out of guesses? It's Benjamin Harrison. And with that, let's hear today's question and start optimizing your life.
Hi, Dr. Neil. This is Catherine, a listener from Australia. Loving the podcast. Thank you so much for doing it. So I just had a question about zero-calorie sweeteners like erythritol. Are these actually 0 calories? Because I've heard things about how the gut microbiome can metabolize these sugar alcohols and then you actually absorb them somehow. But I'm a bit confused as to how that works. And it does seem a bit too good to be true, but I do have a massive sweet tooth. Thank you for your time.
Hi, Catherine. Thank you so much for listening, and I'm thrilled that you enjoy the show and find it helpful. Your comments truly mean a lot to me. Now, regarding your question specifically, I agree that some of these sugar substitute claims seem way too good to be true. I should also mention that sugar substitutes are also known as non-nutritive sweeteners, so you might hear me and others use these terms synonymously. Now, Catherine, you mentioned erythritol as an example, and whether it actually does provide the body with calories, even if it's marketed as a 0-calorie sweetener. As you mentioned, erythritol is a sugar alcohol, which means its chemical properties contain compounds that resemble both sugar and alcohol. Now, how does this happen? Erythritol is made by metabolizing the starches found in wheat or corn. Whenever we metabolize a carbohydrate like wheat or corn, sugar is the result. So that's where erythritol gets its sugar moniker. Now, what about the alcohol? Basically, the sugar gets fermented into alcohol. Now, usually this takes time, but food manufacturers can speed up this process by adding certain species of yeast to that sugar. So if we think about this process for a moment, doesn't it sound really familiar? I feel like I just described how to make wine or beer. Well, sure enough, erythritol is found in a number of commonly consumed foods like, guess what? Wine, beer, and even soy sauce. Now, of course, wine, beer, and soy sauce actually do contain calories, but that's because they're made with other ingredients too. Erythritol is only one component of these foods. But the actual chemical compound erythritol itself, because of the way it's digested and absorbed by the body, does not provide any calories. So what you've heard is in fact true. Now here's what's happening. Scientists have discovered a way to manufacture erythritol in a lab so that it can be added to other food products. When it's isolated like this, erythritol is about 60 to 80% as sweet as its cousin, sucrose. Sucrose is found in most plant-based foods, particularly fruits and vegetables, but it's also used as the main ingredient in syrups and caramel sauces. So sucrose can be quite sweet. So while erythritol won't taste quite as sweet as syrup, it's still fairly sweet. And because scientists can make a nearly 100% pure version of it, it can be added to foods to help improve their taste. So why doesn't it provide the body with any calories? Well, once erythritol hits the tongue, it triggers the sweet receptors there. So the brain gets the signal that we're consuming something sweet. But once the erythritol gets to the intestines, it's absorbed very quickly into the bloodstream, even faster than its other cousin, glucose. Once it hits the bloodstream, it continues traveling until it gets picked up by the kidneys. So erythritol doesn't really have time to provide the body with any energy. It gets absorbed, then excreted. If for some reason there's any erythritol left over in the bloodstream that wasn't excreted by the kidneys, then it will get sent to the large intestine where it will be excreted in other ways. Now, I always have to ask, is erythritol safe to consume? Well, again, we actually consume it regularly since it's found in many foods in its natural state. But the lab version of erythritol that I described earlier can be found in products like chewing gum, beverages, and baked goods. So we may end up consuming more of it than we think. But in general, it seems erythritol has a low risk for causing any negative health effects. The most common side effect of consuming too much of it, or any other sugar or alcohol for that matter, is diarrhea. But in that case, you do have to consume quite a bit of it to experience that not so pleasant side effect. Thank you again so much for your question, Catherine, and thank you for your kind words. You're going to be entered into a very small raffle every month to win a book. Not so much just because of your kind words, but because you sent me a question, of course. Now, if you want to be in the raffle, send me a question. Just come by oldpodcast.com/ask. Or you can do it the old-fashioned way and call in. The number is 61 I love OHD. Both methods are in this episode's description, which you can find at oldpodcast.com. All right, that'll do it for this week. Thank you for listening every day and all the way through. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you on Monday where your optimal life awaits.